There are a million different life hacks, routines, and habits that you can try, switching it up constantly every single day. The problem becomes that if you constantly switch, you never really commit to anything or follow through. So it's much better to have a few solid, impactful, albeit simple, routines in place. So today in this video, we're going to interweave some old and new ideas from the work of Newport, Tiago, Forte, and the Stoics to try to get in place a few routines that we can follow throughout our day for constant self-improvement. So let's get started. Let's start with the Stoics. Stoicism is a branch of philosophy that, if I could boil it down to one sentence, would be focus on what you can control and let go of the rest. And in terms of what you can control, this basically boils down to your actions and how you respond to situations, and almost anything else is out of your control. Obviously, I am oversimplifying an entire branch of philosophy, but for our purposes, that's enough to understand for now. Stoicism has a lot of practical advice for running through your day, and we're going to use it as a scaffolding to start to interweave some of these ideas together and build something for a day-to-day practice. Let's start with a morning routine. We're going to leverage both Newport and the Stoics here. What we want to do is plan our day, but we want to keep in mind what the Stoics called the reserve clause. Basically, this is putting the caveat on the end of any plan that says, fate willing. Now, we all know that we can fill notebooks full of beautiful plans, but even the smallest wrench in our day can cause those plans to go immediately awry. The Stoics want us to remember that this is just the nature of life. This is not something that we can control, and we need to be able to adapt, and so we want to keep in mind that any plans we make are if fate allows that to happen. Basically, we just want to start with the mindset every single day that we're just going to adapt to whatever obstacle that life puts in our way, because life is absolutely going to put obstacles in our way. So there's nothing to do here overly specific. We just want to get in the right mindset. Again, all of this has to do with keeping a focus on what we can control and letting go of the rest. For bonus points, you can do what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum. Basically, that is just visualizing your day, thinking about what obstacles can come up, and planning what your reaction to those obstacles will be. You're helping yourself not to be surprised when obstacles arise, and you're even planning for what you might do in those cases. So to start with the practical part of planning our day, let's turn to Newport's fixed schedule productivity. Basically, start to develop a routine where you decide on what hours of your day you're going to work. You want to have a solid end point so that what that does is motivate your mind to really push through, work hard for that day, because you know you have a stopping point. The best approach would be able to do the same time every single day if your schedule allows it, but really just deciding on when you want to start and when you want to finish work may be enough. Once you decide on what hours you want to work through the day, you then can turn to Cal's time block planning method. This is basically giving every hour of your day a job. You want to sit and you want to plan in no smaller than 30-minute increments throughout your day. It can be longer than this, but you don't want to get too finicky trying to plan every little minute. So what you want to do is look at your calendar, write down every hour that you want to do the specific thing you want to do, and then you have a solid plan for your day. Again, don't forget the Stoics when they say fate willing. Additionally, you want to plan a little bit of time for a shutdown ritual, which we're going to get to at the end of this video, but don't forget to plan it because it's an important part of your day. Now, an important thing to keep in mind here is that it is okay that your plan is going to go awry during the day, and in fact, it's expected. The point of having a time block plan is just so that you have a map of what you want to try and do that you can jump off of or replan as the day goes on. Instead of starting from nothing when plans go awry, you have a solid plan to work from and adjust your route. The point here is to consistently plan your day so that you can replan, not to be perfect, not to tell the future. Now that we've gotten to our day, let's make sure that we're working towards something meaningful. We're going to turn back to Newport here and think about his keystone habits. You're going to think about the big areas of your life, things like your family, your job, your fitness, your health, and you're going to start to form keystone habits within each of these areas that are important to you. Over this 4 to 6 week period as you're working, you want to check in with yourself weekly and make sure that your keystone habits are 1, feasible, 2, meaningful, and 3, not too easy. This is a balance that's going to take time and you're going to just need to work on it, but that's the reason for checking in with yourself every single week to see what's working and what is not working. Again, we are here to accept life in all of its realities, not to plan the future and not to try and be perfect. We are human, and we're just going to deal with life on a daily basis as reality comes in front of us. What these habits are doing is building an identity for yourself as someone who takes these areas serious and who takes their life as something important that they'd like to work on. As you go forward, building an identity here will help some of this to just happen automatically over time. Again, you're building the identity that you're the type of person that improves, that works hard, and has a lot of meaning to their day. Let's not forget about the Stoics either. As you go through your day, pay attention to your thought process, to the judgment you're placing on things, and do this in a detached way. You don't need to identify with every single thought. You don't need to respond to every single thought. You don't need to respond to every single emotion. Simply start to work on detaching yourself from these things and watching them as an observer. And keep in mind that there are the things that you can control and the things that you can't. When distressing thoughts or situations arise in your mind, simply remind yourself, these are impressions. They are not the things themselves. I don't have to identify with them, and I do not have to react. Additionally, if you are upset, try to postpone any decisions. If you could do that for an hour, you're going to be in a much better spot. Postpone for as long as you want. You want to make decisions in a mindset that is calm and calculated. You don't want to make decisions when you're off your rocker, freaking out, anxious, or angry. We've all made decisions in those situations, and they very rarely ever turn out well. So we've dealt with planning our day, we've dealt with some of the meta aspects of our day. Let's talk about some practical organization tips. One of the very best systems that I've ever come across for organizing is Tiago Forte's PARA, or P-A-R-A method. P-A-R-A is an acronym that stands for Projects, Areas, Resources, and Archive. This is a system that you can use across anything. Your computer files, your phone, your note-taking system. It's basically a way to organize all of the inputs that are coming into your life. So projects are basically things that have an endpoint and have a specific outcome for them to be checked off. Things like writing a speech, creating a blog post, building a presentation for a client. These things all have specific outcomes that have to be in place, and they have a time frame for which they're going to start and when they're going to end. You're going to put all of your projects into the folder titled Projects. Surprise. The best thing about this, though, is that as you come across either things that you've created for your project, things that you've come across that are inspiration, or anything, you're going to know exactly where to put them. As we move on, we're going to move on to A, which stands for areas. These are the bigger, overarching areas of your life, things that we thought about a little bit earlier: fitness, family, career, health, things like that. They're the things that don't really have an endpoint, but for which you want to keep some sort of standard for over time. Moving on from there is resources. Resources are basically everything else. They often are the things that we're interested in, that we find information on as we move through our day, but that are not specifically tied to an active project and may not be part of some of the bigger areas of our life. These might be things like cryptocurrency, investing, photography that you like, landscaping pictures that you like. Here's where you can save those types of things into folders or any sort of organizational system that can keep those in place. These are basically there for you to pick and choose and use from as you go forward in your life. You may not have a landscaping project that you're doing now, but at some point in your life, if you want to change the landscaping in your house, you're going to already have an entire folder full of tips, inspiration, things like that. So it's a very useful folder, but it's a little less actionable than your everyday projects or the areas of your life that you're keeping a standard for. Finally, the second A in PARA is for archive. This is basically cold storage. These are completed projects, things that you don't need anymore and that you're not using. This is actually an excessively useful folder, and one of the things it does is it helps decrease that anxiety of deleting anything. Instead of needing to delete things, you can just put them in your archive folder. So if you finish a project, move that down into archive. You may never ever look at it again, but you may come across another project in the future that you can then look in your archive folder and maybe pull some useful information out of there. Best tip that I can give you here is that when you're starting this organizational process, put everything into archive. And I mean everything. That way, as you're working, you can begin to pull things out of there and organize as you go, rather than putting in a giant effort up front to organize a bunch of things that you may never use. So it sounds funny to put everything in archive, but give it a shot. I promise it's going to decrease your anxiety, and you're going to be able to find the things that you need and then organize as you go. Tiago Forte's system is all about organizing when it's useful and not putting in this huge upfront work when it's not useful. Again, we're never going to want to try to tell the future. We don't know what's going to be useful in the future. We don't even know what our lives are going to look like. But we can, in the here and now, collect things, organize to a minimal extent, and then reorganize as we need to, and keep things in place and keep things in an archive system. I tell you, this is the best thing that I've ever done. And if you start somewhere, start with the files on your computer or in a note-taking app of choice. You will not know how freeing it is to just know where everything goes or where things are until you start this process. So give it a shot. I promise it'll be life-changing. Okay, we've gotten through our morning, we've gotten through our day, and we're ready to close out. Now remember earlier I mentioned to make sure that you put some time in to your time block plan for a shutdown ritual. This is again a really useful technique from Newport. And what you want to do with your shutdown ritual is basically close all open loops from the day. Things like emails that are going to need responses to, messages, projects that you stopped in the middle of. Anything that's going to keep your mind going in a loop about things is what you want to collect, organize, and make a plan for here. The point is not to finish all of these things. The point is to put a plan in place, maybe a reminder down the road to do something, a note for tomorrow, a due date in your task manager, anything that allows your mind to just quiet down about the anxiety about things that are open in your life. In this way, as you go through your night, and as any human, anxieties arise, thoughts arise, and you start beginning to think about your work and things you need to do, you can remind yourself, I did my shutdown ritual. I looked through all the things that are important, I looked at all the open loops, and I would not have stopped that process until I got to the end of doing that, so I know everything's in place, and so I can relax tonight. It's great to have a tool to calm yourself down. So take 30 minutes at the end of your day to close any open loops, to make any plans, to put any due dates in so that you can relax through your night. And this is the shutdown ritual that you want to do. After you've done your shutdown ritual, let's again turn to the Stoics for a little bit of meta here. Let's sit down at a journal and think through 3 different questions for ourselves. 1, what went well today? 2, what went poorly? And 3, what opportunities did I miss to improve my well-being? Now the point here is to counsel yourself as you would a friend. This is not about berating yourself. This is not about punishment. We're not self-flagellating here. We're not trying to make ourselves feel terrible. Think about it. If you had a problem and a friend came up to you and was just screaming at you, calling you an idiot, telling you that you don't know what you're doing, why do you keep doing these things, how likely are you going to be to listen to them? It's the same with yourself. Show yourself some compassion and think about this as a way to let your calm, rational mind give your future self some recommendations for how to go about things. Take some time to do this, but remember, we're not ruminating here and we're not beating ourselves up. Make sure this is an efficient process. It should not take all night. It's just a way to close out your day and to work towards some improvement. As always, reflection is the perfect way to think through things that you then want to improve in the future. You can't just improve without doing anything, and so reflection is an excellent tool for improvement. Once you've done this, you've now shut down your day, given yourself some recommendations on how to improve, and you can enjoy the rest of your night anxiety-free. All right, there you have it. Some interweaving of some old and new ideas to take you from morning to night and set you up for a successful day. These techniques are practical while being impactful, and they're something that you can follow from day to day. They're easy and feasible to do every single day. And hey, these might even be some of the start of your keystone habits that you can build. I really hope this video was helpful for you, helps you along the path of becoming your ideal self, or at least getting closer to that, as we're never shooting for perfection here. Good luck out there, and remember, this is a process. So let's work for the journey and not the destination. Thanks so much.